We said we bought this big building. Things were supposed to be better. We moved here. Everything is now broken. What do we do? So we had to do a lot of work as an executive team for how do we lead differently? How do we staff and manage people in new spaces? That was a big challenge, and I'm not sure how our paths crossed. But I brought you in, and I remember after one of your first days sitting on the call center floor, you just came and you said, "Man, this is I'm blown away with how bad your training is."
Welcome back to another episode of the Sales Gravy Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Wolf Den, which is right in the middle of the inside sales team bullpen at KaTom, a powerhouse in commercial kitchen equipment. And with me today is Charley Bible, who runs sales for this organization. And we're going to be focusing on what sales leaders and what salespeople need to be doing in this economic environment to sell more. Now, before we get started, I want you to go check out Sales Gravy University. If you work for a small company and you need sales training, go tell your boss to go check it out. You can take your very first course for free when you go to learn.salesgravy.com. That's learn.salesgravy.com. It's the most powerful sales training engine on earth, and I want you to go check it out. Charley, hey, welcome to the Sales Gravy Podcast. I don't think we've ever been on together.
Welcome to the Wolf Den.
I love the Wolf Den.
Yeah, we're here. We're in it.
I want to start with the growth of this organization. So when I first met you, you were like a $30 million company. Today, you're knocking on $500 million, moving towards $1 billion. And you've been instrumental in growing this company. And it's not been a pretty path. I mean, there's been all kinds of hangups, I don't know, you call them roadblocks. Like there's been all kinds of things in the way, but you've powered through and built an extraordinary team. So I guess where to begin as a leader, walk us through the journey that you've been on to take this sales organization and essentially turn it into a growth engine for your company.
Well, I mean, how far you want to go back?
I go back to the beginning.
So, going back to the beginning, KaTom started off in my mother and father's garage. They used to build steakhouses, Western sizzling steakhouses, and they never had their equipment and supplies in time to open, and they'd miss their on-time opening bonus. So my dad started buying restaurant equipment direct from the manufacturers and stocking it in his garage. They didn't want to have a family, wanted to stop traveling so much. So my godfather said, hey, Tim was my father, let me show you how to start a mail order catalog company. And that's where KaTom was born, as a mail order catalog company. My dad was always a visionary. His dream was to sell restaurant equipment online. This was in the dial-up days before Google, and everybody told him he was crazy. But he pursued his dream, and my dad passed away very unexpectedly in 2001. It was right before our website launched, and my mom saw it through. We were a $4 million a year company. This was in 2001. And we launched our website, and then I remember I was in high school, and I would leave school early and come work in the business. And I'd log on to this software, and I would see that there were 30 people on our website. And then somebody placed an order, and we said, oh, my goodness, somebody actually ordered something online. And, we realized we were onto something. That gave us the platform to grow forward. And then, people would call our 800 number, just like they had for the catalog, but now they were calling it because they were on our website. And that was the start of our inside sales team. We were so dialed in our Morristown office. Patricia, our CEO, she sat up at an elevated desk, and she overlooked this team of probably 10 people. They did everything from pricing to new product setup to vendor setup to sales to customer service. I mean, my mom had her finger on the pulse of the organization, and she knew exactly what everybody was doing, what any customer's issue was, what problems needed to be solved. And man, it was dialed in. But the problem is we had outgrown our facility. So we went building shopping, and we ended up where we are now at our 350,000 square foot campus here, a 30-acre campus. And when we bought this building, we said there's no way we'll ever fill this up. It had too much office space. too much warehouse space. Well, we just finished our fourth warehouse distribution center expansion. I believe we are on our third call center expansion. And as you can see, I'm looking around. I think I've got, by the end of next year, I'm going to be in trouble for seats. So we're going to have to figure something out there. But when we moved to this building, all the things that worked for us broke. Because it was no longer this group of everybody that does everything sitting right under the CEO's nose and her making every decision. And it was a struggle. We kind of panicked. We said, we bought this big building. Things were supposed to be better. We moved here. Everything is now broken. What do we do? So we had to do a lot of work as an executive team for how do we lead differently? We had to say, how do we staff and manage people in new spaces? I mean, that was a big challenge. And I'm not sure how our paths crossed, but I brought you in. And I remember after one of your first days sitting on the call center floor, you just came and you said, man, this is, I'm blown away with how bad your training is. Because we literally had a girl with a binder, and she just sat behind somebody and gave them kind of, for lack of better terms, half-assed instructions for how to do things. But somehow I remember you said to me, even with all the things I see bad here, you have put together a band of misfits that's highly effective. And then, but back to your original question is how did I lead through growing this? I believe was your original question.
Because it was messy.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of trial and error. But bottom line, we had to get the right people. We had to train those people. We had to give those people systems and processes that allow them to be successful. And you have to instill in all of those people's minds that, you're not here for you. You're here for the customer. You're here to understand what the customer's needs are and to provide them a solution. That's what's made us very successful.
Well, if you think about the sales motion, and I'm going to get deeper into multi-channel sales organization, which is what you run. But I remember when we first started working together, this was 2012. I think that the average seat, the person that was sitting there in a much smaller call center, they were selling, I don't know, $300,000 a year. And if they had a $30,000 a month, we were high-fiving each other. This is the greatest thing ever.
Right.
Today, if the same seat doesn't pass $400,000, we think it's a failure. So you've got people now that are doing $4 million, $5 million, $6 million, $7 million a year in the same seat. And what that tells you is that when you start applying good leadership, when you start applying good systems, and you've done so much investment in building out the systems, which were disparate when we first started working on this, to really smooth out the process. But you also did something that I think is fundamental, and I want to talk a bit about that, is you kept raising your expectations. Because I remember this. I remember spending time with you thinking, if we got here, this would be great. This would be the greatest thing ever. It's not possible to get any more than this. That's as much as you could ever get out of a person. And flip forward 11 years later, and you're doing with one rep on your floor what a lot of companies can't do with a whole team. So talk a little bit about how, as a leader, you were able to see the possibilities and keep raising the bar for all the people on the team.
Well, growth is in our DNA. Growth is a core component of this company. We run at a compound annual growth rate for the last 10 years of over 25% a year. And you don't get there by resting on your laurels or accepting status quo. You get there by continuing to push. You get there by continuing to challenge yourself, by continuing to challenge your people. And it's really, for KaTom, it's a top-down mentality. Our CEO has a sign in her boardroom that says, "Patricia, you're better than this." And that's what she lives by is, you are better than who you are today. How are you better? And that's what you've got to figure out. One of my core philosophies in life, in my personal life, in my business life, is be 1% better every single day. If I apply that philosophy to my business, make your sales 1% better every day. We've got 280 some odd business days in a year.
Yeah.
You get 280% better, right?
That's
so, I mean, if just 1% better every day is something that we, and there's always rapid improvements, right? So you work on a big project, you make a big leap. But if every day you're working on getting 1% better every day, that's going to continue to raise the bar for you. But I do remember when you and I were working on our first kind of variable compensation program, we set the top tier at $3 million, and a number that we were like, oh, nobody's going to reach this number, and they're going to get paid when they reach 3 million. And now if you sell $3 million a year, your chair is going to be open for somebody else, because that's called our low performance metric today. So I mean, it has we've continued to raise that bar, but the 1% every day methodology works for us.
It's a great lesson especially for sales leaders, and looking at where we are in the economy. So we went through 3 years of an economy that we'll probably never see again in our lifetime. So the pandemic really changed everything. Y'all were open. You were taking orders as fast as you could get them. A lot of my clients were doing exactly the same thing. There were just so many orders coming in, and then we bounced off that into a more challenging period of time. And I feel like there's two different types of leaders right now in this environment. There are the leaders who say, I'm going to get better every single day. Nothing's going to stop me. I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to find opportunity, take market share from my competitors. And there's another group of leaders that are kind of accepting it. They're like, well, this is the best I can do. This is as good as I can get. How do you, as a executive leader, change the mindset of folks who say, I can't see more. Like, I can't see how we could possibly sell more in an environment like this, to be like the other group that just says, we're rainmakers. Like, we're going to find a way.
Yeah, I every Thursday morning, our entire executive team comes together, and we spend about 3 to 4 hours together every Thursday morning, every week. It's a meeting nobody misses. If you're on vacation, you teams into the meeting. If you're off-site, you teams into the meeting. It's something that's very critical, because we call it our growth meeting. And in there, we talk about our growth numbers. We talk about where we are. We talk about where we want to be, and where we should be. And a lot of the communications, this has been a more challenging growth year for us than we have seen for the past several years. Interest rates are up. Economy is tightening. We're going into election year. It was too hot. It's too cold. There's 1,000 different reasons for why I think the economy is just slowing overall, right? But we view challenging times as, in most challenging times, it's human nature to pull back in your shell, retreat, take safety. Well, when people do that, there's a lot of ground left that is unguarded. So at KaTom, our philosophy has always been, when people pull back, we reach forward. We go pick up market share. We go take ground from others who have retreated. And we spend our entire Thursday morning meeting talking about, hey, growth is challenging right now, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And what we have done to this point in time has been very successful. But if our growth is slowing, we've got to pivot, and we've got to go find new opportunities and new avenue for growth. And at the end of the day, you've got to realize that your growth has to be centered around providing customer-centric solutions, right?
Right.
So As long as we are creating the best customer experience out there, growth will follow in some form or fashion.
It's a great analogy that I use to explain what you just said, which is when people slow down, you accelerate. But let's just say that you're chasing a competitor and you're on an interstate and they're ahead of you. And let's say that they're doing 65 miles an hour and you're doing 70 miles an hour. So you're trying to catch up to them, but they're 10 miles ahead of you. You can do the math. I can't do that algebra because I didn't do very well in math in school. But if you did the math, it's going to take you a long time to overtake them in that environment. But when people get back into their shells, when things go bad, people pull over to the side of the road. They park. They're gonna stop and they're gonna try to huddle up and play defense. You blow by them, and that's why I always say when in situations like this, my belief is you should put the accelerator on. Don't do stupid stuff.
Right.
But go faster, because that's when you can take market share. That's when you can pass people, and it's just natural for organizations to kind of hunker down and huddle up and say we're going to protect versus we're going to expand.
Right. So, in our view of our company is a healthy company is a growing company. You're not healthy if you're not growing. So we always have to figure out how are we going to grow, and whether you're catching up to that competitor that's in front of you, or maybe if you look backwards and you see, hey, some of my competition I've passed has crashed.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of maybe I need to slow down and go back and take care of some of the stuff behind me that I left that I passed by to begin with. And there's more than one area to go get growth. There always is. There are thousands of opportunities out there. You just have to identify the right ones and the best ones and go after them.
So you run a multi-channel sales organization that you've got an inside sales component, you've got an e-coms component, you've got an outside sales component, and then you've got your internal teams that are doing design build, working with governmental agencies, big opportunities, big complex deals, multi-location accounts across multiple restaurant chains. That's messy. And there's a lot of infighting, right? So there's territorial. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. Every company has the same problems. We all face this issue. Even in my small company, we face one salesperson saying, "No, that belongs over here," where another salesperson says it belongs over here. What's your best advice for leaders who are in these messy worlds where there's multiple channels and you're trying to get the right customer to the right person at the right time to deliver that experience? What's your best advice for leaders, especially executive leaders who are in these situations, for keeping the wheels on the bus and keeping everything moving forward while you try to navigate how to organize your teams to best take advantage of not only market conditions, but opportunities?
So, I tell my teams, I said, look, if you all aren't stepping on each other's toes occasionally, y'all aren't dancing hard enough, right?
That's good advice.
So I mean, it's gonna happen. Whenever one of my sales leaders says, "Well, we don't want to go after this because this person's working this market," and it's like, okay, well, just because we have a couple of salespeople working Nashville doesn't mean that the inside salespeople shouldn't outbound every single Nashville, Tennessee contact in our system. You know what? If there's a little bit of overlap, we'll resolve it. And how the resolve happens is you have to have your leaders on the same page saying, hey, we're all going to go try really, really hard. When conflicts happens, we're going to work through it, and we're going to work through it in looking through two lenses. What is best for the customer and what is best for KaTom as a whole? So if we make a decision that is what is best for the customer and what is the best for the company as a whole, generally, we resolve something amicably and we make the right decision and everybody involved understands. There's been situations where, I had two different people working on something and, it comes time for the $500,000 PO to be sent in and, you can't split the baby down the middle, but, you can compromise payout to two people on something. So, there's ways of resolving these issues, but in my mind, if we're always thinking, what is the best decision for the customer? and what is the best decision for the company, not the individual segment, not all of those things, then we're going to get to the right place.
Yeah, I think the way you described it really comes down to the culture that the leaders are setting. So even if you work for a large organization and you're leading one team and another leader's leading the other team, you've got to learn how to have a conversation around those two important things. And in my organization, when there's a fight over territory, I just look at my people and go, can you ever tell me a situation where we didn't do the right thing by everybody? And nobody can give you that answer. So it's one of those things, just relax. We're going to find a way to do the right thing. We're going to compensate everybody and pat everybody in the back for the work that you did. But I love what you said. We're going to start with what's right for the customer and then what's right for the company. And when we put those two things together, we have a tendency to always do the right thing. But the territorial thing is an issue. And one of the things that's bothering me, and I'm just interested in your take on this, and it's bothering the stew out of me lately, and that is that I'm experiencing a lot of me first versus team first. And I'm seeing it all over the place. I'm seeing it in different companies. I'm seeing it in my own company. I'm seeing it out in the wider world where you've got a team of salespeople and the individual salespeople are making decisions for themselves that are the antithesis of doing the right thing for the customer and doing the right thing for the company and doing the right thing for the team. And there's always been an element of that in sales, right? There's always been the lone wolf. There's always been the person who is going to focus on their commission. But I just feel like it's gotten to be an epidemic, and I don't know if it's just the trauma that we just went through as a country or in the world. But and maybe I'm just hypersensitive because I'm Gen X and now I'm old and I think that everybody doesn't do it the way I do it. But it seems to me that it's a concern. And I'm hearing other people say it, and I'm interested in your take on that. And then I guess from a leader standpoint, how do you handle it? How do you deal with that to get people back on track thinking about the team?
I mean, that's as you well know, that's been a challenge that you and I have been discussing the past couple of days. I have my team, but I've got me. Got to take care of me, number one. I don't know. Is it a cultural thing? Is it a product of the environment that we're in? You've got to think about in 2020, we went from being people who could peacefully shop in a grocery store to people having fistfights over who was going to get the last thing of toilet paper.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to go back to the stupid toilet paper days, but did that change something inside of people that people are afraid that, because we went through scarcity, supply chain scarcity, food scarcity. We went through a lot of scarcity in the COVID days where people said, I got to go out, I got to go out and take care of me and take care of mine. And has that translated over into the business? I mean, maybe, but I think we just have to remind our people that, hey, that may be how the world operates, but that's not how KaTom operates. Yeah. In KaTom, we work together as teams, and we're stronger as a team. And I think we can concretely prove that the team is stronger than the individual, right? But we just have to get our leaders refocused on that message that the team is stronger than the individual. And when we put the team first, we all win, not just one person winning.
I love that. I think it's a great message, and that very well may be where we're coming from. So a quick shift into SEC football.
Oh, Lord. You just going to rub it in right here on the podcast? How bad Georgia beat Tennessee?
I haven't. I came to the building. I haven't gloated even once. Well, I did this morning. But I did say that if this team, because we're sitting in the middle of a team they're dialing their rear ends off trying to grab a number at the end of the month, and I said that if they hit the number today, that I will put on an orange Tennessee jersey and I will walk through the building singing Rocky Top, and you can film it and put it on TikTok. That was my challenge today. So it's buzzing out there.
I mean, it's out there. They, what if I might go hand them an order just to, from another segment, just to, make this happen, just to see that. No, that's, I I actually had a diehard Alabama fan that worked here, and I lost I don't know why I thought I should bet on Tennessee beating Alabama. This was like 5 years ago when we were definitely not beating Alabama, but I did have to walk around in an Alabama jersey for an entire day. So, things like that have been done around here before.
Well, y'all, there is a like a little bit of camaraderie through here that comes from being in the SEC world, right? The SEC football, the bets out there, the $100 here. But those are the type of things that I love on a sales floor. Like I want that energy. I want the team, but I also want people. I've got the trophy here. They're picking at each other, and when you hear those things, that's when that's the beautiful music of a group of salespeople working together that they've got their chins up and their shoulders up. And y'all do a really good job of getting people to be thinking that they'll come in their jerseys. I certainly, walk through here and poke everybody who's a Tennessee fan. I'm not saying that anything about the fact that we dashed your hope after the first touchdown and then never let you come back, but it was an interesting game. There was a minute where I was afraid.
I mean, Georgia has been looking like they want to lose to someone all season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they have. I am a very optimistic person, and I thought Tennessee being at home in Neyland, and just I thought it was going to be a repeat of how awesome it was when we beat Alabama. I was sorely mistaken on that, but it is what it is. Y'all are two-time back-to-back national championship winners. Y'all are having a good run right now.
I refrained myself from texting you while you were in the stadium. So
I was out of the country. I probably wouldn't have responded. So, all in all, Tennessee's football program is better than it's been in the past. We didn't do as good as we did last year. And I would imagine the Tennessee coaching staff is having the same conversations that you and I are having. They're saying, hey, we did not do as good this year as we did the year prior. What needs to change? We've proven that this is possible. So what changed to make us take a step back, and what needs to change for us to continue to improve? Those are the discussions, whether you're the coaching staff at the University of Tennessee, the University of Georgia, or at Sales Gravy or at KaTom Restaurant Supply. Those are the conversations we should all be having if we're looking to improve. We're all looking to approve an end outcome, right?
Yeah.
So,
and sales professionals, these people that are surrounding us, these are the elite athletes of KaTom. These are the elite athletes of the business world, and they have to think that way. I hope that Kirby Smart's got Patricia's poster sitting in the locker room that says, "Dogs, you're better than this." I mean, if you saw the Georgia Tech game, they were trying to lose the Georgia Tech game. They looked terrible.
We should send Kirby a poster of Patricia saying that and see if it makes it up in like one of his press briefings or something.
He should be doing that. And think about it when you're at the top level there. It's easy to get complacent.
Right.
And that's one of the things that happens to salespeople a lot. They have a really good month. We were talking about this yesterday. They have a great month. They just kill it. And then they took their foot off the accelerator and then they have a terrible month.
Right.
And I see salespeople doing this all the time like essentially in the desperation roller coaster, up and down, versus thinking of themselves like an athlete, thinking of themselves, I got to get better every single day. I've got to look ahead every single day and say, what am I going to change in this environment so I can still make it rain?
Right.
So one last question, and I really just want to focus on skill set. So you and I work a lot on the skill set of the sales team, and the interesting thing, you hear me say this all the time: every skill in sales is perishable over time. Like you think as an inside sales team, they're taking a call from a customer. The ones that crush it are the ones asking great questions. They're building a relationship. They're expanding orders by finding out more information about them. One of the reps yesterday was talking to a restaurant owner who owns a Mexican restaurant, and started talking to the person. And in the middle of it, the person revealed they had three other restaurants. And he was like, well, you have 300 restaurants. What else do you need? And the person gave him a list, but they didn't call. They revealed they had one. But then the rep next to them went, okay, can I take your order? So both reps know what to do, but one of them forgot how to do it. And it's so easy to do in sales. you were telling me a story yesterday about being down at Doral playing golf. And you said, I went out and I crushed it. I'm hitting drives. I'm on the green. I'm winning all the money. I'm having the greatest day of my life. And the next morning you woke up, and I'm gonna let you finish it from there. You go to the clubhouse and you drop a bunch of cash buying expensive stuff. And what happens?
I mean, it was a Saturday afternoon. I couldn't miss. Played the best round of golf of my life. Played so well that I went to the pro shop and Doral the next morning and dropped $100 on Titleist Pro V1 golf balls. As a 24 handicap golfer, I do not use Titleist Pro V1 golf balls. It is a waste of money. But I'm like, I'm on fire. I'm going to get it. By the end of I'm going to be generous and say by the end of the front nine, I had drowned $100 worth of brand new golf balls. I couldn't hit a tee ball to save my life. And I don't know what happened. I was doing the same thing. I thought I was doing the exact same thing I was doing the day before when I was on fire. But I don't think comparing my very inconsistent golf game is quite the same as inside sales agents. But a lot of times you have those same things. I've been listening to phone calls, some of my best agents, and I'm just like, what happened? You literally did not ask any of your discovery questions. I mean, because, right, somebody calls in. This is one of my favorite analogies. I think you put this analogy together when you first started working with us. And you said, nobody goes to McDonald's and orders French fries and says, my goodness, those were some of the best fries I've ever had. I should call restaurant equipment companies tomorrow to learn about the fryer that fried those. No one does that, right? You call in about a fryer because you have a need. Well, what is that need? And while you're at it, what are you doing? What are you doing, and how much of it are you doing? Right? Yep. That gets you into how many restaurants do you have? Yep. Where's your full list and all of that? And if you're not doing that, people generally don't volunteer. They don't just call you and word vomit every information and how big the opportunity and how big their need is, because they're laser focused on, hey, my fryer went down. I need a new fryer. I need it immediately. I'm going to call this company and I'm going to get it. And then you know what? They'll go back to their list later and they might call you, or they might call the person they've been buying from for the last 10 years. I mean, it's all a timing exercise. And when you do have that customer calling you because they need something, that's your opportunity to figure out how big the opportunity is.
And you can't slice it.
Right.
So, you think about the golf thing, because I love the golf analogy, and I'll explain why. So I had the same thing happen to me. One day, everything clicked, and I'm hitting the longest drives. I'm hitting 350-yard drives, which is really not easy for me to do at my age and my size. But I'm like, it's like everything works. I'd had some coaching. I went to a couple of lessons, and it was just working. A week later, I couldn't hit a golf ball. Like I'm worm burning them down the fairway. I'm hitting them right hand turn into the woods. And I remember I was getting super frustrated, and it really only took one. Like I had one bad thing, and then I started adjusting everything. I had my wife with me, who is a brilliant golfer. She could have gone pro. And she says, stop for just a second. Let's line up and let's do this the right way. And she slowed me down and got me right back to the fundamentals. You know what? I hit a ball straight down the fairway and everything worked. Now, you didn't have that happen because your buddies were happy to take your money. When this ball started going in the water, they were thrilled. Like nobody was going, Charlie, if you could line up a little bit differently. But it's just so easy for that to go wrong. And what happened was, it wasn't that you didn't know what to do with your body. It was that your brain started playing tricks on you.
Right.
And I think the same thing happens in sales, because you can watch a salesperson have a really good call, and then something can go wrong, and then their brain starts playing tricks on them and they go backwards. And my message to salespeople is, sales is hard. Like, this is difficult. Golf is hard. It's difficult. it's really, really easy. I think it's easier in golf to go backwards than in sales, but it's really easy to get off of your game and then start having a whole lot of bad things happen, and then you start making excuses.
Well, as we've been having this conversation, a light bulb kind of went off for me. Because I was like, well, we've all been there where we start hitting bad shots, we start chunking the ground, we start hitting it thin. Well, what I do is I step back from the ball, I take some practice swings, and I know my areas I have to focus on. Is my left arm completely straight? Am I turning? Am I getting upper body pivot back and through? Am I keeping my head down? I mean, those are just some of the obvious first places that I have to figure it out. A lot of times when I start chunking a ball, I'm breaking my left arm.
Mhm.
And I do that because I think I can generate more power. But what happens is I end up, misaligning on the ball and just hitting straight in the ground. So what are those spot checks that each salesperson needs to do? And are they self-aware enough, right?
Bingo.
To say, whew, I'm chunking the ball right now. I need to step back. I need to check these 4 points. Let me pull back, check these 4 points. Boom, right back on the phone. Am I back in the game?
Yep.
I mean,
And that, by the way, is the power of a coach. Like if
right.
that's why, for leaders, the place where a leader is going to have the greatest impact on one of their reps is sitting side by side.
Right.
Because when they make a mistake, you can say, let's step back, let's recalibrate, and you can do it in a moment. And in a world like yours, especially on an inside sales floor where it's really high velocity selling, there's not a lot of room in the middle. So you can have one bad call that then cascades into 10 bad calls, and you just blew $500,000 in sales because you weren't on your game. But when you've got a good coach behind you, so for the salesperson, you need to be super coachable, like pay attention.
Mhm.
And trust me, when your wife is trying to coach you, there's just nothing in the world that just irritates you more than your wife behind you. It shouldn't be that way, but I mean, it's the same way back to her. Like she'll say, "Don't even look at me," and but the awareness for me is I know what to do. I just can't remember, and I know that if I listen, that I'll get it right. So for the salesperson, you got to be coachable. Like you got to open up your mind and say, someone's seeing something I can't see. They're shining a mirror on this. You go to the Masters every year. You go out to the driving range, that beautiful place where they're practicing. Every one of those players, the elite players in the world, has got a coach standing right next to them. Most of them have got phones holding up and they're taking a video of this player who is the best player in the world. The player plays way better than the coach. Why are they there? Because the player can't see it themselves. But if you can create the awareness and there's not a coach there, at least in the moment, like you said, there's a checkpoint where I can go back and say, is it my left arm? Is it this? Is it that? And that's because you took a lesson. That's because you had a coach that worked with you. And I'm in the same boat. I've got the same problems. I'm in the same handicap range you are. But that I think is the essence of getting really good at the craft. As you weave from SEC sports into sales. That's why I say sales professionals are the elite athletes of the world. This is a skill position.
Oh, it absolutely is. It takes a certain personality to succeed at this. Personality alone won't get you there, but you have to have the right personality to be good at this to begin with.
Okay, last question. This is just a brag question.
You said that last time.
I know. Well, I got one more because I think that our listeners will dig this. We had Mike Weinberg on a couple of weeks ago, and Mike's a huge Porsche guy. I mean, he loves it. So you've got a brand new automobile. Brag on that just a minute because it's cool.
Oh man, I don't like bragging on my own personal stuff. We're here to talk about business.
Brag on it. Tell us what you got.
I had I've been waiting for this car for years, Jeb. I have a 911 GT3 Touring, 6-speed manual transmission. It's awesome. My wife and I were supposed to go on our honeymoon, and we got married in 2019. We're supposed to go to Switzerland on our honeymoon in 2020. That got canceled due to COVID. So I've been on the list for this car for years. They called me and they said, "Hey, your name's up." And I said, "Oh, okay. Wasn't expecting that. Cool. can I do European delivery? And they're like, no, that book's out a year in advance. And I said, well, why don't you make a phone call on Monday and see if you can make it happen? And they made a phone call on Monday, and they said, we got you a delivery date. It's September 19th. So fast forward from when we got married, we now have 2 children, and this is literally in August when they told me I need to pick it up a month later. I think I had 2 months. So I had 2 months to plan a trip, convince my in-laws to watch our 2 children for 2 weeks while we drove around Switzerland in my new car. But you know what? It was a bucket list experience, and it's fun.
Yeah, and that's what we live for in sales, like to be able to have those experiences. We work so hard, and I love it. It's a beautiful car. Charley Bible, thank you for joining me on the Sales Gravy podcast.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Jeb. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And look, folks, if you want to sell more, if you want to learn the craft of selling, go check out Sales Gravy University. For individuals and for teams, it is the most powerful sales training engine on earth. And right now, you can take your very first course for free, your very first course, by using the code FREECOURSE. Go to learn.salesgravy.com, learn.salesgravy.com, and use the code FREECOURSE. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy podcast. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to click like and subscribe so you never miss a single video. And if you want more sales training content, go to learn.salesgravy.com.